Here we are, Sktch Events in the Arts District in Las Vegas. Welcome to the first episode of B&E with Freeze Rock Ski. B&E is Bizness N Edutainment. If you don't know what edutainment is, it's education and entertainment together, and we're here in the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. Well, when it comes to creating events in Las Vegas, you're going to find this woman at the top of the list. If you want lifelong memories, she's who you'd call when you desire an unforgettable experience. Founder of Sktch Events, Midwest native, and lifelong Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Let's give it up for the one, the only incredible Kellie Hanley!
Yay! Thank you, Donnie.
Yeah, so thanks for letting us into your world for today. You know,
excited.
Since we're at Current HQ, why don't you tell us just a little bit about Sktch?
Well, we opened Sktch in 2017. After being in the hospitality industry for over 30 years in Las Vegas, I felt like I was at a point in my career where I could identify the void and do my best to fill it. So when we opened up Sktch, our thought process was, first and foremost, really to take the level of happiness and joyfulness when you leave Las Vegas to a new level. I love the city, and I think that's my main motivation for being in this industry is I want everybody to love it as much as I do. So when we opened up Sktch, we thought, how could we make it easy for people to produce their plan, to come up with the plan, and so we built our whole company around that. So making it easy for them to have a vision and a thought process, and for us to take it and turn it into reality, and hopefully make it as pain-free as possible along the way. So that was the whole motivation behind Sktch, and I think just to sort of take a different approach to what I had experienced the previous 26 or 27 years in the industry, and make it a little bit more user-friendly. That's the motivation.
Awesome. How did the spelling come about? Why did you spell it with no E?
You know, it really was towards a trend at that moment. There were two main reasons. One, because it was sort of trendy to have a name and remove the vowel. But really the other one was I really liked the name Sktch. And when I researched it, I realized that there was another company, although they're in Australia, they spelled it with an E. And I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any major confusion between the two companies, and that's why I removed the E.
Okay. Yeah. And has anyone ever made like a negative comment like, oh, you're sketchy, like when they heard the name?
Well, not in front of me. So whether or not they do behind the scenes, I would imagine so. But I've never heard anybody say that, although I'm sure it comes across their mind.
Oh, that's good. It's just that when I first heard it, that was what I first thought of, you know, like sketchy, like, you know, like some druggy in the bushes.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of funny. So maybe it, you know, could have some negative connotations, but I couldn't get away from the fact that all the years that I've been designing events, no matter what the scenario is, the very first thing that I always did was pull out a pencil and a piece of paper, and I guess you could say start sketching. So I feel like that is just the beginning of any thought process when it comes to design, you know, is that sketch.
Okay. That's a great answer. So in one or two sentences, like what would you say Sktch is, maybe like your mission statement?
Well, first and foremost, I want to create a working environment that people enjoy coming to. I mean, that was one of my biggest motivations when I opened up the company, because although I had a long career at another company, I wouldn't really say that I was really happy to come there. And we spend so much time at work, especially in this industry. And so honestly, my mission would be to create a approachable, one as good a possible work environment. And then other than that, you know, just push our creativity to a limit and make the industry accessible to everybody. It's a really fragmented industry. It's difficult to manage your way through, especially like a city here in Las Vegas. And so I feel like our mission would be to sort of untangle all of that for our clients and make it as easy and hopefully fun and enjoyable process.
Awesome. I mean, I believe that, you know, I got to disclose something. I work here and I think it is a good environment and people are generally happy. You know, there's days, but people are 90% happy, I'd say.
Good.
Yeah. So where did you grow up?
I moved around a lot when I was growing up. My dad worked for a pharmaceutical company, so good for him. He was promoted every 2 years, which meant I moved every 2 years when I was growing up. So all in sort of the same Midwest, so West Virginia, in Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Ohio, Pennsylvania, all in those areas is where I grew up. So probably the longest time I ever lived anywhere in my childhood was 4 years, and I lived in St. Louis for 4 years.
St. Louis.
So
How
I
old
kind of
were you
think that
during that
I
time?
graduated high school in St. Louis, so I went there my entire high school career.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
college. So yeah.
Oh, that's fun. So you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I love St. Louis.
Hell yeah. Have you ever been to City Museum?
I don't think so.
It's someplace I recommend to anyone that ever is in St. Louis. It's the most fun.
Is it at the Arch?
Downtown. Oh. It's not at the Arch. It's downtown, and it's a playground for kids and adults alike. But like, if you're a kid at heart, it's gonna be your favorite thing.
I bet you my sister's been there. She takes her daughter. That's one thing about St. Louis. They have a ton of museums, amazing food,
great sports,
great music, good sports. Yeah. So it's a cool city.
It is. What did you want to be when you grew up?
To be honest with you, most of my childhood, I wanted to be a math teacher.
Oh.
So I actually went to college for that. I wanted to be a high school teacher.
I don't think anybody that works for you would expect you to say that.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always wanted to be a teacher. So yeah, it was interesting. But when I graduated high school, I went to college for marketing, and I started a job in sales. And I never really looked back on my prospective teaching career.
Oh, okay. So. And how did you get into the events industry?
Well, I don't know. I personally think it's kind of a funny story. So I moved here from Ohio when I was 21 years old, and I moved here for the company that I started working for as soon as I graduated high school. So they happened to have, I was leasing cars and equipment in Ohio, and the parent company owned a gold mine actually here in Nevada. And the owner came through a few times, and like the third or fourth time that he came, he asked me if I'd ever considered moving to Las Vegas or the West Coast. And I'm like, of course I would. So he hired me to handle all of his marketing. It's a really interesting job, experiences I never would have dreamed that I would have. But maybe like you might imagine, the company went bankrupt. It was a gold mine. So I found myself in Las Vegas with no job. And, you know, again, 18, I was only 22 at the time. So I didn't have a lot of experience. I had modeled when I was in high school, and then I had worked in this marketing job. And so when that company closed, I really didn't know what I was going to do. So, you know, to fill the gaps and pay the bills, I did some retail, I did some restaurant work until I tried to fill it out. And so then I said to myself, what else have I done? And the only thing I'd ever done was model. And I knew that in Las Vegas, because of the trade shows, there was a good market for that. And so I said, that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to grab models. So I started calling, and at that time, you literally called through the phone book. So I opened it up and looked under modeling agencies in Las Vegas, and I started calling. And good or bad, I got all the way to the V's before anybody even wanted to talk to me. And it was called Vegas Entertainment. And I talked to the owner, and they said, you know, yeah, come on in. And I met them. They hired me on the spot. I started 2 days later, and they were a destination management company, but just happened to book a lot of models. So I just literally fell into it by accident.
Can you tell the people out there what a destination management company, aka a DMC, is?
It's a good question. I think it's funny, in any industry, you start throwing out acronyms thinking everybody knows what that is. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's called Destination Management Company. And what that stands for is a company that specializes typically in a certain destination. So they will handle, when groups come to town, they'll handle their transportation, any large movements of the group. And then they really act as a local expert for the client. So if they need recommendations and resources for restaurants, venues, show tickets, special events, and things like that, then the destination management company works as sort of a subcontractor for them while they're in town. And they are truly a subcontractor, because most of the time they don't own anything. They simply just act as the expert and then outsource and coordinate all of the movements for the large groups.
Oh, that's probably the best definition I've ever heard. Who are some of your clients, and how has Sktch grown from the beginning?
Well, when we first opened, well, we were still I guess you could say, trying to understand what our identity is. I mentioned earlier that we had a goal of becoming a custom fabrication shop and sort of, filling the gaps that were existing here in Las Vegas in this field. But when we opened, obviously we were just interested in business, so we were really flexible about what we do. We really didn't have any minimums, and I think it gave us an opportunity to sort of fill out what our different choices might be for ways to move forward as a company. And we were able to get in touch with them just by being a part of the community. Reaching out, is there anything that we can do for you? Doing some charity events. And I think the way that we've evolved from there is the projects that we do now really don't even compare to what we did when we first started. I mean, our building was 3,000 square feet, and now we have 20,000 square feet. So, we need
Wow.
that because the scope of the projects that we do are so much larger. Just in general, our team is so much larger. So I think we've really grown a lot, not just in size, but I think in the type of projects that we take on. And we really learned over the years really where our sweet spot is and how we can best help the clients, which I think are in detailed designs, which I think is one of our specialties. A lot of our competitors aren't as strong in the design world as we are, but we have strong designers and then a great fabrication team.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. A lot goes into it.
It sure does. Yeah, it's a complicated business. And I think one of the things that makes it so unique is because everything that we do is pretty much a one-off, a one-time, you learn or you have a challenge with it. In a lot of other industries, you're like, oh, great, now we've solved this problem, we can move forward. But in our business, that's great you solved that problem, but you probably will never face that one again. So you have to just reinvent the wheel every day. But I think that's one reason why people like it, though, because it's a challenge. There's not a lot of repetition here.
Reinventing the wheel's tough sometimes, but
Can be. I think if you choose this industry, that's sort of what your motivation is to figure out how to do stuff.
all right, you're known as a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Have you ever been to a game?
When I was really young, I went to a game when we lived in Pittsburgh, but I haven't been yet, which is ridiculous, honestly. But here in Las Vegas, they played the Raiders last year. And I don't. If you're from here, the tickets are outrageous. I mean, literally $800 for a bad seat.
That's
And I mean, it's a really, as a big fan, you think to yourself, I've waited all my life for this moment. Is it not worth it? And honestly, no. So, and also you can see it better on TV anyway. So I found myself in a position where one of my husband's friends, like 3 days before the game, he is not a Raiders fan and not a Steelers fan, but he had season tickets. And so he's like, hey, you guys want to go to the game? And so I was extremely excited and that great, really amazing opportunity. And then something for work came up. So I ended up not going, but my daughter and my husband ended up going. But,
okay.
So
well, at least they got to go to it for you.
But I think this year they're coming back to Vegas, and I think my husband and I decided that it is worth it.
Yeah, you got to do it once at least.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, who's your favorite Steeler?
Well, I mean,
or who are some of your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go retro. I mean, honestly, I mean, I like the team now. It'll be interesting to see, how this year pans out. It was a little rough last year. But I mean, historically, I grew up my ideal of the Steelers is the 70s. I got to go for Franco Harris. Of course, I like Jack Lambert. And of course, I'm a Terry Bradshaw fan. My mom was addicted to Lynn Swann. I think that's why my husband kind of looks like him.
He looks like him. Like the moment I saw Carl, I was like, you look like Lynn Swann. And I didn't know that he like the whole Steelers thing, but I was like, whoa. You look just like him.
People ask him all the time. And honestly, I think people think he is Lynn Swann sometimes. But yeah, those would be my favorites.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Franco Harris with the Immaculate Reception.
I have a Christmas ornament actually of that movie.
No way.
Yeah, he's like this.
That's cool. Where do you see Sktch in 1 year, and where do you see it in 2030?
Wow. Yeah, I swear, I'm sure it's not just this industry or my business, but since the pandemic, it's just like there's no steady. It's just you don't have any idea what's going to happen next. But definitely within a year, we'll be in a new building, which is extremely exciting. I feel like we are seeing an uptick in opportunities in the trade show world. So I definitely see us doing more of that in addition to what we already do. Probably staying about the same size from a personnel standpoint. I feel like we have a solid team. We have access to all the skill set that we need. So I don't really see us growing much in that manner, but definitely more business. And, I guess I envision it as having maybe not as many pieces of business, but the pieces of business are bigger and grander is the thought process. Traveling is something that continues to grow for us. Not so much this year, but I do in a year see that coming back into play because of a lot of our marketing tactics. So in 2030, hopefully I'm on a beach. But with my daughter taking over, I think that we have set a plan out for ourselves. We like the footprint that we have right now. Really don't see ourselves growing to this gargantuan business. Would really rather stay more boutiquey and hands-on, but just fine-tuning everything that we do, perfecting what we do, getting better and better at what we do. That's the plan.
So you'll be on a beach, Jordan will be running this, and things will be about the same but better.
Yeah, I think the revenues are where we're focusing right now because as a new business, every year we've grown so much. And so a lot of your energy and your time and your resources go into that process of growing. So what's important is to understand where do we want to be and what do we want to be. And I think when I take a look at our business itself, when we've had these years where it's just literally turn and burn, turn and burn, turn and burn, I just don't think that's our personality. We would rather focus on projects and make them the best that they can be. So I think that we need to build our business, or we will build our business around this footprint and just make each project as fruitful and successful as we can, instead of just trying to grab everything that isn't really, I don't think, our strong suit.
It's not good to have too many projects going on like that at once anyway. It's better to focus on the good ones that you really love and make those like top notch.
I agree. And, holding on to the clients, as we discussed in the beginning, I have clients that I've been working with for many, many years. And it's just such a win for us and for the client. And so I think the only way really to foster those kind of relationships is by focusing on them when they're in town and making them feel like they are important, as opposed to worrying about, 15 other clients, just trying to grab everything that you can. So that's our philosophy.
What makes Las Vegas an ideal place for Sktch?
I just feel like we're so lucky. Las Vegas to me is always the first in the country, like to pivot, to move quickly through any issues. Those of us that have been around for a while know 2001, 2008, and then of course the pandemic. And Las Vegas was the first one in 2008 to reinvent the trade show and find a reason for you to come to Vegas and really react quickly to lowering prices and making accommodations to people that didn't have the giant budgets anymore. And so I think that makes it a really great place for us because I can rely on the fact that the city is always going to push forward in making sure that the hotel rooms are full and the city is full. And there's a lot of different opportunities for businesses like ours to capture business. They don't sit stagnant. So it keeps it, pulsing forward all the time.
I love this town.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't know, it gets in your blood, honestly. It's a great city.
It is. What are some obstacles and what's the toughest part of this business that you face?
I think it's the cyclical nature of the business. It's a really labor intensive business. It requires skilled labor. And when you're busy, you need a lot of people. And we have found ways to plug holes from time to time with temporary help. But it does require a high level of skill. Really, every single person that touches a project, it requires a high level of skill. So to me personally, trying to figure out how to have the correct team in place for when we're really busy and find a way to be able to pay them when we're not as busy is my single biggest challenge. We live in a very hot city, so we know that during certain times of the year, business for our business sort of drops a little bit. So I think that the ebbs and flows of the businesses is something that I'm having the hardest time figuring out. It's not like we live in Canada or, a city like Minneapolis where, period, end of story. During the winter, we're not going to have any business, because one year July could be our slowest month, which would make sense in Vegas, and then the next year we have a huge project in July. So from a business owner's opportunity to try to forecast and plan ahead, it's almost impossible. And in 30 years of doing this, I feel like that hasn't changed. I mean, there isn't an obvious ebb and flow of business. It just happens, and it's not the same. Like at our business last year, we spiked by having two giant pieces of business in the second quarter, where they're not going to be replaced this year. I mean, and I think that is one of the challenges in this business, is figuring out how to staff up and prepare your business for what you want and need to do revenue wise, and being able to survive through when it's not there.
Oh wow, never thought about that, but it's a lot. Like I toured for 10 years, and it's like you get all the money when it's there and hold on to it until the next one, and then get all that money, and that's kind of the same vibe.
I think it is. And I know, like, if you own an ice cream shop, or you rent surfboards, so there are a lot of other industries that face the same thing. I just think that those might be a little bit more predictable to plan for, where in our business, why wouldn't I think, that I would have some of those same pieces of business this year, or maybe not the same piece, but something replacing
something in the same,
and so if there's no really identifiable factor of why it would drop, it's hard to plan for. So you have to be really nimble, for sure.
What is some advice you'd give to someone trying to get into this business?
Well, I think that it's, a lot of people want to do it, right? I mean, it sounds so cool, right? We do parties, and especially if we have a client like we did last year with Sephora, it was like, oh my God, I love makeup. This is so amazing. And so I think that that's a great start, having passion for it, being motivated, to have a great experience and present a great experience. I think that's a great start. But I think really people need to understand that it's a lot of hard work. You are in a position to serve others. So I think you have to go into it understanding that, what your role is in the process. And I think learning and experiencing as much as you can in every way, shape, or form. I think it's really hard to understand the things that we need to know, that I think when I see new people come in the industry that you would never think that you needed to know, things about weights and power and, fire marshal rules and safety, but those are extremely important parts of what we do. So I think that understanding the whole scope of what we do and what your job would entail on a daily basis would be something that I would advise people to do when they're thinking about getting into this business. Intern with somebody, shadow with somebody first, to really see what the business is all about. Because what most people see is the social media part of it, which is the
fun
best,
part.
Right? Yeah, I mean, this great party. Yeah, look what I did. And the blood, sweat, and tears that go in before that. There's a lot of stress in this business. There is no tomorrow. I think it's one of the few businesses where their event is tonight. There's no leeway. It starts at 7, period, end of story. So the stress levels are very high. So I think that you just need to make sure that is, that is something that makes you comfortable and something that you can work with. I think is very important. That's what I suggest.
Well, if you want to get into events, you heard what she said.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any innovations that you've created or popularized? And if there's not, is there one that you've wanted to create to make this whole thing better?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think as a company, since we opened, we have just developed so many processes, procedures, they're pretty much behind the scenes, but just internally, there's so many details in this business, and we have so many conversations with our client that share nuances that you can't forget, that they expect you to remember. And so I think all of the processes that we've put in place behind the scenes have been innovative for us as a company. A lot of people use Slack. We use Slack. And then internally on our Google Docs shared drive, we've created a lot of different planning tools that help the program managers work through the process, also sharing information with the other program managers. Because again, you might go on vacation, you might be out sick, you might get diverted to another project. And so it's super important that that I can go in and pick up the project and I know where you are, what your challenges are, what you're working with. And so I think that those communications that we've developed behind the scenes, it's taken us a few years, to come up with the right procedure and the right documents that make it easy for us to use. I think that's probably been the most beneficial new addition to us behind the scenes to make us flow better as a business. Um, but I think innovative wise, what I'd like to see, I think it would just be more of that. I mean, there's a million different programs that you can purchase and apps that you can purchase, for program management. Listen, they're all complicated. We've tried a handful of them, and if it takes you longer to populate the app than it does just, to do it longhand, if you will, then really what is the benefit of the app? And I find that so many of them that are developed are just overly laborious like that. So I think if somebody is a genius that can do something that sort of, and maybe with AI we'll see something because they'll be smart.
Yeah.
And we put in the first start of the project, they might be smart enough to carry it through. But that would be my thought process in this industry, because there's so many details that can't be forgotten. And no matter how long you've been in the business, if you skip one step, then now you're set up for disaster. So I think that would be something I would focus on.
I think AI is going to play a big part, like really soon.
We already use it, which has been really fun. We've been wordsmithing a lot of things with it.
Cool.
And then also when it comes to creative ideas, I hate to admit it, but quite honestly,
no, we got to use these tools that are available.
Right.
What's up?
Yeah, when we were doing a proposal that we were doing 2 weeks ago, one of our program managers put it into one of the search engines. I wish I knew the name of it, but you just put it in there and then it just generated the craziest list of ideas, way beyond anything on our normal search engines would have procured for us. So it's exciting to see how
that's cool.
us. Yeah,
that's really cool. I like that. Can you tell us the common myth about the events industry?
Well, I mean, I think with the advent of Pinterest, even TikTok and Instagram, it looks really easy. I mean, and honestly, a lot of the things do look easy, like what things we don't do, but look simple, like, this curved structure with a balloon arch over it, and so you see a lot of people thinking, that sort of devalues what we do when they see something like that they made in their garage, but obviously for us, it takes it to a whole, it has to be safe. How long is it going to stay up? Are the balloons going to deflate? So at your home, you can get away with all of those things. You can lean it up against the wall and tell your kids not to run into it. But in the event world, the reality of it is you have to take it to the next level. It has to be safe and sturdy and reliable. And I think that is I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's easy to do because they see people doing it online a lot. And it's complicated. And sourcing things, especially these days, it is a repercussion that I still see lingering after the pandemic is accessibility of things. And so if your client calls you and wants, 2 purple chairs on Thursday, well, sure, there are 3,000 of them on the internet, but you're not going to be able to get it in time. So I think that's a big misconception, is that things are just like magically happening, and it's actually quite complicated.
When I was a kid, me and one of my best friends wrote a letter to MC Hammer's management wanting him to come perform, and we just figured there was a stage at this venue he could perform on, and the first thing they sent us back was, hey, what is your staging gonna come from? And we were like, what staging? Like, we didn't know. So people that don't get behind the scenes, they think this stuff is just automatically there, or it's overnight, it's placed there, and it's not. It's very labor and cost intensive. I think that's a really good analogy, because you're so right. And if you don't think any further, yeah, you're right. I mean, even if you walk into a room, and you see all of the decor that we've done, and I know people are like, this is it, this is all that you did, it took us 12 hours to set up, so there's just so much more that goes into it, I think, than what is really on the surface. For sure. Yeah, I agree. Have you read any books lately? And a second part, are there any books that you'd recommend to read for this events world? So first, have you read any books lately? I can't remember the name. I'm struggling in my head to remember the name of it right now. My daughter got it for me for my birthday last year. It was a really good book. It was a fiction book. That's the most recent book that I've read.
Prior to that, there's a book that I've referred to a lot in my career, and it's called In the Company of Women. And not that I can only learn from female executives, but
Sure.
I think that there is maybe a little bit different style and thought process. So I found that this book has been really helpful me to refer back to over the last several years. There's a couple of people that have excerpts in it that I really sort of related to. That when I find myself struggling with decisions, I'll sort of head back to that and reread it. I think that that was really beneficial. And, honestly, there are not a lot of books written about this industry at all. And so, if you try to go and find something, I think you'll see that there's a big void in that. But Lena Malouf is an Australian event designer, and she wrote many, many books about the industry. And although at this point they are a little dated, the thought process is the same. I mean, the theme and the inclusion might be different, but her soup to nuts breakdown of the process and dealing with clients, I think, what is magical. I mean, it's really easy to read and understand, and I would highly recommend her books to anybody in the industry.
So, In the Company of Women and the Lena Malouf books.
Yep.
Okay, great. You heard it. Go ahead and get on Amazon and check those out. Do you have a hidden talent?
I don't, unfortunately. No,
Okay.
I really don't. I don't play any instruments. I wanted to learn how to play the drums. I actually bought a drum set during the pandemic, but I didn't take the next step. I just banged on it for a few weeks.
Okay.
I'm a great bowler. We've done that a few times together, Donnie.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm a really good swimmer. I was on the swim team when I was growing up. We do have a pool at my house. I spent a lot of time swimming. I cannot sing. I love to dance, although I guess it's questionable whether or not that's a hidden talent.
We could ask your daughters.
Yeah, they might. Yeah, she might know of some.
No, I'm saying they could tell us if your dancing's
exactly
up to par or not.
Exactly. I think we all think we're good dancers, but yeah, I mean, I love to cook. I think I am a very good
You're a
cook.
good cook.
I am good at that, but I don't know if I have any really outstanding hidden talents.
Okay. I mean,
I'm still young. I might find one.
That was a good. Either way, that was a good bunch of them. Who are some of your influences?
Interestingly enough, I think that a lot of the event planning came a little naturally to me. So, and it is very personal. And so I don't know if I really looked at any event designer that I sort of aspired to. But from a business standpoint, that question is kind of easy for me to answer. I have a friend, his name is Ray Ellis. He's an Australian businessman. And I've known him for probably 26 years. And I just actually texted him this morning. I talked to him probably 3 or 4 days a week.
Oh.
He owned, he was a client of mine at one point. He used to own a travel company in Australia, and he was a client. And we just hit it off. And then since then, when he comes to Las Vegas, we sit down and he mentors me. He's probably my same age, but he's brilliant from a business standpoint. He's a common sense approach. And I feel like that he really, other than my dad, has been the most inspirational and motivating and sort of grounding type of an influence that I've had in my career. Honestly.
Ray Ellis?
Ray Ellis.
So you mentioned he was a mentor. How important is it to have a mentor in just any business or any game that you're going into?
I think it's imperative. I mean, we have access now to the internet. It's almost an unlimited library of information that you can, attain. But I think the difference is that it's very generic. It's not, really tailored to you as a human being or you as a business. And so finding somebody that understands those dynamics, I think, is going to really channel the information that they give you. So it sort of waters it down a little bit from just the ridiculous amount of information you can find online. I just think it's imperative, find somebody that you look up to, somebody that you trust. And like I said, Ray's about my age, so I think we always think of mentors as somebody a lot older than you, but it's just somebody that you feel, has some wisdom to share, maybe approaches things a little differently than you do. But definitely somebody that you can lean on and trust. I think it's just imperative. We all need it. It's almost like a professional therapist, because the reason that some people might go to a therapist is because they don't want to share it with the world or their close friends what they're going through, and as a business owner or a executive of any sort, there's a lot of people a lot of times that you can go to and talk about the struggles that you're trying to decide. Do I keep this person? Do I let them go? Do we buy this piece of equipment or do we not? So you need somebody that's sort of removed from your inner circle that can answer those questions for you and sort of push you in the right way. Or more often than not, I think a good mentor is more somebody that just provokes you to think through the process, right? Not necessarily spoon feeds you the answer, but sort of helps you come up with a way to come up with the right answer for you.
I think mentors are absolutely important.
Agreed.
Yeah. Get a mentor. If you weren't in events, where would you be?
I guess I would maybe fall back probably to the teaching thing. I just have a passion for kids, like most older kids, teenagers. I would find some way for that to be in my life, whether it was through teaching or volunteering, something. I think that's definitely where I would revert to, is doing something with kids. Sure.
Awesome. You mentioned the modeling. Tell us a little bit about when you were modeling and how that went. And
so long
give us
ago.
Insight into that world.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty big deal for me. I just got lucky. At that time I was in St. Louis, and so St. Louis is a huge hub for like catalogs. So I don't know, do they even do that anymore? But
like the Sears catalog.
Yeah, Sears. Even like brands, you just like a single brand shoots a catalog of like Victoria's Secret and all of that. Used to get those things in the mail. And so in St. Louis, they did a lot of that work there, and then also in Chicago. So I was really close. And my dad actually put me in modeling school for reasons, to sort of polish. You learn how to walk. They teach you etiquette, communication. So that was really my dad's motivation with putting me into that schooling. And while I was there, I got lucky. It was John Casablancas. So he actually came, he would travel around. And so he came and,
he was the guy that had the little kiosks at the malls, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So he came, and they were hooked up. They were, I think, the same company as Elite Models in New York. So it was a really legitimate agency. And so I worked with them really all through my high school career. I mean, I traveled a lot. I did a lot of tutoring because I traveled a lot. I probably worked three days out of the school week. I would be gone. So it was a really big part of my life. And I think that it was wonderful. I mean, at 16, I was traveling to Florida for trade shows by myself, for 3 or 4 days.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So I think that it really benefited me in many ways. So it kind of culminated when I was a senior in high school. I was in a fashion show and I was picked to go to New York, and my dad wouldn't let me go.
He was afraid of New York.
It was a good decision, actually, because now you're hearing about all of the crazy things that happened, but at the time, of course, I thought it was the worst thing in the world. And it's sort of like defiant to him, which makes no sense, but when you're a teenager, it did. I said, but I'm not going to model anymore, and that was the end of it. So, but I think, now I'm very grateful because I don't think I would have been fulfilled in that career. But I also am very grateful for the opportunity of having that in my life, because I think that I learned a lot from those experiences. It carried me well.
Awesome. Yeah. What are 5 albums, or if you can't think of an album, songs that you'd want on a desert island with you, that they were the only 5 albums or songs you could have?
The very first song that came to mind is Tom Sawyer by Rush. It's absolutely one of my favorite songs ever. It gets me going and fires me up. I'm a huge Sade fan. I think that, that's always something that kind of brings you and, calms you down. I can't live without Stevie Nicks or Mary J. Blige in my life. Those are both extremely important to me. So
that's 4.
I'd probably throw in some Johnny Mathis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Love him.
That's cool. I met Mary a few times and worked with her a
Mary
couple of times.
Did you?
Yeah.
I think that carried me through my challenges when Carl was not home. I asked the girls. Her CDs, and there's a few songs on them, which might not make sense on the surface, but if you dig deep, those are the ones I screamed in my car to get me through. So yeah, cool, huh?
Yeah.
Was she cool?
Yeah.
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 That's good. She seemed like she would be.
Yeah,
Easy,
she was cool.
friendly, and down to earth, and she says what's on her mind.
Yeah, she does.
I like that.
Yeah, she's cute.
She's pretty, huh?
Yeah, yeah, she can dance. I like her. She has her own style of dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mary's great. So, last question: where can your potential clients find you?
Well, we're on Instagram. That's really the best place to see our work. It's always fresh and updated. And then our website we just redid. It looks really stellar.
What's your Instagram handle?
Just at Sktch without the E, at Sktch Events. And then our website is the same, sketchevents.com without the E in Sktch.
Okay, we'll put that below here so you guys can go and check it out. And if you want to potentially use Sktch to do your event here in Las Vegas or anywhere, get a hold of Kellie and she'll get it cracking.
Call us.
Well, that's it for the first episode of B&E. I appreciate you guys coming. Kellie, thanks so much for having
Donnie.
us. Yeah.
It was fun.
That's it. Peace.
Take care. Bye.
Put a clear right now, and I just take the wheels ready for paint. I'm gonna put clear.
Okay, so you're gonna put some clear coat on it.
Yeah, it's the last coat, and you are watching how the.
This is the technique on how to do this.
All right.
This is Marco.
Marco
Sketch of-
Polo.
Marco. Hooking up the air hose. Okay.
Slow. Slow.